Welcome to Codex, History of Video Games. My name is Tyler Osby.
And I'm Mike Coletta.
And this week, we're back after taking a week off for Thanksgiving. We're going to talk more about Metal Gear Solid 3 and 4 bosses because we can't get enough of Metal Gear on this show. And I'm so glad that you have played many of the games, the most important games so far. So now we can all just be, it's just the Metal Gear podcast now.
Yeah, I mean, I'm finally caught up. I beat 1 through 4, which is the main story. So I am all caught up with the sauce. The rest is now just like prequel stuff with Naked Snake.
Yeah, it's all important, but you have crossed the threshold of having seen most of the important stuff.
I love it. Well, this is where we left off with our tier list here, and I actually saved it, so we got it pulled up over here, so you can see our screen here if you're watching on YouTube. So we got it all set up with like what the S tier boss fights are. You can ignore if you're watching at home a lot of these on the like bottom row, but we do have 16 bosses to get through, so we should just get through them.
Lightning round. Should we say where we ended up though on with our last one? Because
yeah, we could do that. So in the D tier, we have the first Revolver Ocelot fight and Olga Gerlukovich in the Metal Gear Solid 2. And Revolver Ocelot fight is from Metal Gear Solid 1 because it's kind of, you're just kind of wandering around a circle. And then C tier, we have the M1 tank, we have the Vulcan Raven fight, and then we have Vamp.
From Metal Gear Solid 2 Vamp?
Yeah, Metal Gear Solid 2 Vamp. And then, because there will be a Metal Gear Solid 4 Vamp we talk about. And then in the B tier, we have the Cyborg Ninja, the Hind D, the Liquid Snake, and Fortune, the Liquid Snake. Then in A tier, we have Sniper Wolf, Metal Gear Rex, the Harrier fight from Metal Gear Solid 2, Metal Gear Ray. And then in S tier, we have Psycho Mantis, Fat Man, and Solidus Snake. And I mean, I think we all know why we chose Fat Man, because he's on a roller skates and he's drinking wine. So it's worth it. Makes it an S tier in our mind. And we're going to judge these on gameplay mechanics, but also general vibe too.
Fully arbitrary, just what we like the best for any reason at all that we care about. This is not objective in any way.
And I think we talked about it kind of before, because there's going to be definitely some more. I feel the same way as Tyler in this, that I personally have more love for Metal Gear Solid 3 bosses than Metal Gear Solid 4 bosses. But there's probably going to be some high ranking ones on the Metal Gear 4 boss list as well. So there's that too. So let's just get into it. So the first fight is from Metal Gear Solid 3 in chronological order of the game, where you fight Revolver Ocelot. And it's like this weird kind of shootout situation where you're on one side of like a ravine and he's on the other side, and you're like dueling pistols. Very cowboy. This is where you like learn about how he like flicks his guns around.
Twirls guns
around, twirls
this
them.
Cutscene for twirling guns is like 5 minutes longer than it needs to be, because it only needs to be about 10 seconds long.
But this is where he like learns that he's a 6-shooter kind of guy. Right.
Yeah.
This is like where we figure it out. So
that's where Snake says, hey, the way that you shoot guns, you should use a revolver. So he's just Ocelot at this point. He's not Revolver Ocelot.
No, yeah, he's just the good old fashioned Ocelot. And this boss fight is way better than Old Man Ocelot, in my opinion.
And you can shoot the beehive and it can land on him, and that's funny.
That is funny too. That makes it. I was thinking it would be like kind of in the B tier though.
Yeah, I'm fine with that.
B tier for that?
Yeah.
Okay. The next fight, speaking of bees, is a man that is literally made of hornets.
Literally made of bees.
Yeah. I like this fight because you can go underwater to get away. So there's like, it makes you kind of go swimming, which is fun. I love swimming in real life as well as in Metal Gear Solid 3.
Yeah, and I think this is the first Metal Gear game you can swim in. I mean, I guess the original Metal Gear 2, there's water sections you can swim in, but I don't think you can do that in Solid 1 or 2.
Yeah.
Oh, no, there's swimming in 2. There's a lot of swimming in 2. What am I saying? There's a whole escort section in 2 where you swim. Anyway,
I think the pain for me is pretty much on par with Ocelot because of like where you're fighting in this cave with the water, but it's not better than Ocelot.
Okay, so B tier sounds like.
B tier. Okay. Now here comes my first one that I'm going to destroy. I don't like the Fear as a character, as a boss fight. Not a fan.
Yeah, is that he's like camouflaging himself in the forest,
and he's shooting a crossbow at you, and he just says "the Fear" over and over again. It's not a great boss fight, in my opinion. And yeah, I want to throw him in the D tier.
Okay, do it.
Are you cool with that? How do you feel about the Fear?
I kind of agree with you because it's it's one of those boss fights in Metal Gear where the mechanics or the controls of the game don't work in your favor because it's so hard to aim in first person and like be precise, which it feels like that's what you have to do in this fight. And so it's just kind of an exercise in frustration. And I think if it weren't, if the controls were better, it would not be a fun fight either because then it would just be too easy. It's like too hard because the controls are bad, but if the controls were good, it would be too easy.
Yeah, it makes me wonder what it's going to be like in the remake of Delta that comes out next year. Like, how are they going to pull off this boss fight? Because
I wonder how much they'll change this kind of stuff. Because
the
it
only
seems like they're going for like, hey, we upgraded all the visuals, but the gameplay is like 1-to-1. So it may still just be kind of bad.
yeah, because I feel like in a lot of these boss fights, the challenge is because you're fighting the controls more so
Yeah.
than you're fighting these
Yeah.
bad
Metal Gear
guys.
controls are not very good. They get a lot better into 4, but even then they're still not great.
Yeah. So I think the fear is in the D tier,
Okay.
which is fun because that rhymes.
Yep.
So that's good for everybody too. Now, this is the boss fight that I feel like well, actually, there's two that define Metal Gear Solid 3. The end.
The end.
The
Civil
end.
War sniper.
Civil War sniper, old man,
Invented sniping, actually.
invented sniping. You can actually shoot him earlier in the game and skip this boss fight. You can also, in the middle of this boss fight, exit the game, change the date on your PlayStation to a
Or wait
week
a week.
later,
Just
or
wait
wait
a
a
week.
week, and he will die. Like, you could beat him with real life time if you want to.
He's like 150 years old or something. And the fight is like extremely slow and tedious and has like several different zones that you have to keep moving through. So it's like I think that's done on purpose. So like if you're frustrated with that fight, like that's the goal. That's not like necessarily a failure of what they're trying to do, but it is frustrating, and that makes it more. It makes it kind of fun to try to shoot him early, and it also makes it easy to do the just time skip thing because then it's just
I
a cutscene where we just stumble upon him, he's dead, and you're like, all right, cool, and you move on.
I kind of want to like try with the new because I'm going to play the new game when it comes out. I really want to see if you can still do those things. Like
Probably.
my plan is I will try to shoot him early and see if I get any sort of trophy or achievement for that. And then I'm also going to play the game on PC. And then when I get to the end, just like play something else for a week and come back and see if he's dead. I'm really curious what it's going to be like. But because of that, and like when I was playing this boss fight and you were watching me, I was getting pretty frustrated just trying to find him.
Mhm.
Also, I'm like, as a person who is a hard time seeing certain colors, like I'm not fully colorblind, but it certainly doesn't help. And there was no colorblind assist in this game or the next game. It made it kind of rough for me. So I had a hard time with it. But even though I had a hard time, because of those different mechanics and how you can beat him and how you can dodge the fight and the fact that he like just dies and doesn't he become like a bunch of butterflies? I think he does.
Yeah, I think it's butterflies. They all of the Metal Gear Solid 3 bosses explode into something. The fear is explodes
Or
into
the
bee, or the
the
pain
fear
explodes into bees. The
the
fear
fear
is
explodes into
crossbow
crossbow
bolts.
bolts. The end explodes into butterflies. The fury explodes into fire, and then the boss explodes into flower petals, if I remember correctly. Right? Doesn't she turn? No, she just dies.
I don't think she explodes. Yeah, I think she
She
just
doesn't
dies.
explode. Yeah.
But her scar on her like snake scar on her stomach like slithers away. It's very strange.
It's very strange, but I think the end to me put him in the S tier.
I think so. I think for sheer creativity and inventiveness around the mechanics of doing the Metal Gear thing of making it like super meta, right? Like the same thing with the Psycho Mantis fight where he's like reading your memory card and making you change controller ports. Like those are the boss fights that are the most unique to this series. And so I think you have to put the end up there.
Yeah, I kind of want to do this when we're done with Metal Gear Solid. And I know people are probably going to be getting sick of us talking about Metal Gear Solid. I want to do an episode where you and I just talk about it.
Yeah.
Because I think that it's very interesting to me that, and I'm sure a lot of people think this too. This is not a new opinion by any means. Hideo Kojima loves movies, and a lot of these games feel like they should just be movies. And but it still works. Like he doesn't abandon the gameplay genre, you know. And so I don't know. It's just very interesting to me. Like
Yeah.
playing a video game that's made by a person who loves movies and clearly wants to make movies, but they're in game still. It just how he does it is strange and odd.
Yeah. Yeah, it will be fun to talk about that because I agree on certain levels. I also think a game like Metal Gear Solid 2 doesn't work in movie form. It just doesn't.
Exactly.
Like,
He is like doing the right thing though with it. So the end to me is in S tier because of
yeah,
that.
I agree.
Okay, cool. Now next is the Fury, and I'm gonna put him where I want where I want to put him and just show you. Okay,
Okay.
I think he's C tier, and I have a reason why.
Okay.
Okay, I love that he's like an astronaut and he clearly has this like space backstory because you know me, I love space. I'm
He's like the
into it.
first man in space or something like that,
Yeah,
right?
yeah. Like I love
But
that.
the secret first man in space that they didn't
Yeah,
tell you about because he
exactly.
came back crazy.
And so it's like he's got kind of a weird Fantastic Four origin story in that way.
Hmm.
But I like him as a character. I did not like his boss fight. I thought his
Yeah,
boss fight
it's
was pretty bland, and it's like you got to get him down a long corner, and you got to shoot him with a sniper rifle, and then he's gonna shoot fire at you. You run away. Like that's the whole fight.
yeah, it's kind of Vulcan Raven-y a little bit. And so is
Yeah,
Fat
it
Man in Metal
is.
Gear Solid 2.
It is. Yeah, and so, but it doesn't have the pizzazz that Fat Man has to me.
Yeah.
Fat Man is all the reason we put Fat Man in the S tier is because he drinks wine and he roller skates. That's amazing.
He
Okay.
drinks wine through a straw.
Yeah, yeah. While rollerblading, 10 out of 10. No notes.
We love
That's
it.
why Fat Man's in S tier. Fury to me is in C tier because he is just like I like the idea of the character as the first man in space. His boss fight is just not really fun.
Yeah,
But
I
I
agree.
don't want to like he's not D tier level. He's not like the fear level to me.
Yeah,
So
but he does keep yelling his name. The Fury. I think he
the
doesn't keep yelling it.
Fury, they all yell their names though.
Yeah,
The
that's true.
fear. The end doesn't yell his name because he's just like a Civil War guy. He can barely talk because he's so
Yeah,
old.
he doesn't really say that very much at all. And the boss doesn't yell her name. She doesn't yell the joy.
She doesn't yell the joy. No, she
Yeah.
doesn't.
That's also important to know about Metal Gear Solid 3 is all of the main boss fights are like emotions,
They are
kind of.
emotions.
The end is, I don't know if it's an emotion, but
Well, speaking of the most powerful emotion and the next boss fight, the sorrow, and which is not even really a boss fight. It's
yeah,
more of
boss
an
fight.
encounter. It's an encounter.
Yeah, it's more of a commentary on it's sort of a proto. Well, I haven't played Spec Ops: The Line, but it's sort of like veering into that territory a little bit of like making you feel bad for what you've done so far.
It is, yeah. As far as Spec Ops: The Line goes, though, because there's Spec Ops: The Line tries, as someone who's played it, tries to make you feel bad for what you've done in a different way.
Okay, I gotta play that still.
You really got to play that,
I
man.
know.
I would watch you play that.
Okay,
Like where the way you've watched me play Metal Gear Solid, I would watch you play Spec Ops: The Line because
okay,
I think let's do that
let's
because
do that. Yeah, because it's not very long either. It's like
it's not a
it's
very
the
long game.
standard. Yeah,
I think
okay.
it's like 6 hours. It's not
Yeah,
very
great.
long. So yeah, definitely you should do that. But the sorrow to me, it's not a boss fight, but it's a good commentary, and I want to throw it in A tier.
I was gonna say the same thing. The thing about the sorrow as a boss fight, for those of you, we're deep into spoiler territory on Metal Gear
Yeah,
Solid
all
here
this
right, at
is,
this
but
point. Yeah.
it's fine. I mean,
Um,
this is our one of our most clickbaity episode series we've ever done. So
but the deal with the sorrow boss fight is you just sort of walk toward him down this long, like knee deep river, and so you're walking very slowly towards the sorrow who's sort of taunting you the whole time. But as you're doing it, you're passing by the ghosts of everybody you've killed so far in the game, and it's pretty far into the game. So if you're on a kill run like Mike was, there's a lot of dead bodies you're going to be going through, and they're all like sort of mangled in the same way that however you killed them throughout the game. So if you like slit their throat, that they're sort of dealing with that, or if they got shot or whatever. So it just sort of makes you wade through every kind of bad thing you've done in the game, which is very interesting. It's also interesting if you're on a no kill run, because then this encounter is just slowly walking towards the boss with no bad guys at all, which is kind
yeah,
of funny. But I don't think the game makes it very clear that that's what's happening either. So if you're not quite, if you don't know what you're doing as you're walking through, because I don't think it's obvious as you're walking, you go, oh, these are all the guys I've killed, because there's no real way to identify them. It's just like, oh, I'm just walking back past a lot of dead bodies,
hmm
or ghosts. But if you know what's going on, it's kind of powerful, I think.
yeah. I thought it was funny because I was actually like, I was having the opposite like reason though. I was like, I'm impressed. Look how many people I murdered. Look how good I did. As far as video game murders go, I really crushed it. So
Yeah.
that's how I felt about the sorrow. All right, the next one is going to be Volgan.
Mm,
Now, this is the boss fight where you're in the hangar and you're in a
hmm.
pit
Yeah.
and you're fighting Volgan. and then Ocelot's above you, and some story beats happen there that are pretty interesting. But as far as a boss fight goes, he's just like a Timu Static Shock, kind of is how I would describe him. And he's not that great. It's fun. It's like a boss fight, way more of a boss fight than Sorrow, but it really didn't do it for me as far as boss fights go.
Yeah, I agree. Is it ever explained how Volgan gets his electric powers, or
No.
He just has them and
He
we
just
just accept
has
it?
them. I mean, all of the guys are like that. Like
Yeah,
all of
that's
them are
true.
like that. The only one that's kind of explained is the Sorrow, because you learn that he died because the Joy killed him.
Yeah.
And he's like haunting her, but they still like love each other, and it's like a weird thing going on there. So
Yeah.
maybe
Yeah.
there'll be more to that when I play the more games. I don't know if you can tell me that or not. But
Oh, yeah. I'm
do
not
they kind of
sure.
bring up these guys in the other games, the other prequels?
I don't really remember. It's been a
Okay.
long time. I haven't played Peace Walker since it came out, and that was like 15 years ago.
Well, Volgan, is this harsh?
D tier for Volgan.
Is that
Okay. Yeah,
harsh?
no, I don't think so. I think it's
Because I think Shagohod is better than Volgan.
Yeah, I agree. Yeah, I think Volgan is down there. I like it for the story stuff that happens, but overall, I think all of these other ones we have placed above it are definitely better.
Yeah, for sure.
Also, I don't really care about Volgan that much as a character.
I don't either. He's just kind of like your generic bad guy. It's kind of like in Harry Potter, okay? Voldemort is like your generic villain, and you're like, okay, he's the villain, but we all care about Snape. You know what I mean? It's like the same thing with this. It's like Volgan is our big bad, but the boss is our Snape that we really care about, and we want to know. We're emotionally attached to the boss.
Right. And we sort of understand why, maybe a little bit why she is the way she is, or at least it's hinted at this point in the storyline. It's been hinted that, like, hey, maybe she doesn't actually want to be doing this, but there's a reason she's doing it. And you're not quite sure what it is. So you like sort of have some sympathy for her, same as Snape.
Yeah, exactly. And I mean, also, I want to know how the boss takes apart our gun so many times.
Yeah, that's true.
It's
she
pretty
does that
incredible.
a lot.
She does it a lot. It's her go-to move. But yeah, Volgan, just the fight in the hangar is a D tier. Shagohod, though, is a fun fight. I like the fights in Metal Gear Solid where you fight a vehicle. Like, it's fun.
Or you're on the back of a vehicle.
Or you're on the back of a vehicle, exactly. And this is the one where you can kind of cheese it by walking under him, and that's what I kind of found out in getting headshots. That's how you do it. But once I got the cheese down, it still took some skill to beat it.
Yeah.
So I
like
like
the Shagohod fight where Volgan is like controlling it.
He's controlling it up top, because I don't really count the one where you're in the motorcycle, because it's not really a boss fight. You're just running away and shooting bad guys. You're not even shooting Shagohod. So to me, the Shagohod fight where you're in like the boss arena and there's the machine guns around and you can distract the Shagohod from shooting Eva, and then like you can go ahead and go from there. Like this is that boss fight. I thought it was fun. I'm torn between B and C tier though on it. Like, how do you feel about it? I don't think it's A tier.
No,
I don't think it's as good as I don't think it's as good as the Hind fight or the Harrier fight.
Yeah, I'll throw it in the B tier. The Shagohod is like a prototypical Metal Gear being the bipedal nuclear equipped tank that sort of walks around. This one has like tank treads on it, so it's but it doesn't walk around, but it is equipped to launch missiles. I don't know if it's equipped to launch nukes, or maybe they're like trying to make it launch nukes at this point.
It is. So the whole story behind it. Oh my gosh, Tyler, were you even listening? I'm just kidding. It's a tank that can shoot nukes, and it can shoot nukes from anywhere because it's a tank.
Yeah.
It's an all-terrain nuclear platform.
Yep.
In the Cold War.
Which is very scary. Even in the not Cold War.
I want to know how many people have Googled, is the Shagohod real? That's what I want to know.
I wouldn't be surprised if there was something they've been working on.
Thousands, yeah, So, but now we've gotten to the creme de la creme of Metal Gear Solid 3. The one that you were like so excited for me to fight. Well, you were excited about the end and the sorrow. You were really excited about those.
Yeah, I love the end and the sorrow.
But this is the one, and we're just going to do this because we all know.
Yeah.
Like, this is the boss fight. It's the most beautiful fight in any of these video games, if you ask me, as far as like staging goes. Again, like kind of like the cinematic idea where he's like looking at like a movie shot.
Yeah.
Like what this looks like when you fight
the boss.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
And so, and you have to like hide, and then you shoot, and then you run away. It's like, but it's not like a mechanic heavy boss fight. It's just like a mood, but the mood is so strong, it carries it.
Right. And it's Snake has to fight the boss, which is kind of his mentor and sort of a like mother figure kind of thing
Mother,
in his life.
but it's also got that weird like mother lover thing going on.
There's yeah,
Little bit.
there's a weird Lonely Island vibe going on there a little bit, but
The Oedipus boss is the way.
yeah, because they're not related, but she is definitely a mentor figure to him. And due to the circumstances in the game, which all make sense by this point, you sort of understand why she's doing what she's doing and why Snake has to be the one that kills her, and why she has to die is makes this fight very powerful because you don't want to do it. This is not a fight you want. You do not want to kill the boss at this point because she's very sympathetic. You understand why she's done it, but you also know that you have to.
Yeah.
And not just because the game is forcing you, but story-wise, this has to happen, or even worse things will happen if she doesn't die by Snake's hand.
It's justified, which is good.
Yeah.
And I like it a lot. It really was a big reveal when you were telling me, you're like, just wait, just watch. And because I was doing that mom thing where I'm watching the movie with you and I'm asking questions and you're like, it's going to come up. I was doing the mom thing and you're like, don't do it.
Wait, who's this? Do we know this person?
Tyler, who's this person? You're like, stop it. You're right. You're right, Tyler. So the boss is I think it's one of my favorite characters in video games.
Yeah, she's absolutely like maybe top 5 characters of all time, like video game characters of all time for me. I love her so much.
Yeah. So that was Metal Gear Solid 3. She is so good at taking guns apart. She's so good at, and she's so good at having a scar that's alive.
Yeah, it's strange. Do they explain? I can't remember where it's explained what that scar is.
I don't think it's explained in that game. Is it?
Okay.
Is it explained in the further games? Is that what I'm going to learn? Maybe.
Well, there is a story thing that I'm not sure you know about yet, but I can't remember where it is said. So I'm gonna have to look that up and make sure maybe that I don't spoil anything for you.
Okay. I still haven't watched that video that came out recently, that retrospective from Second Wind about Hideo Kojima and Metal Gear Solid, because I didn't want to spoil anything.
Yeah. You still need to play through the rest of the games before, because it covers everything.
It covers everything. Very good. Cool. All right. Yeah. So if you're a Metal Gear Solid person, watch that video from Second Wind. It's really, really good. So okay. Then now we're in Metal Gear Solid 4. We got to Metal Gear Solid 4. It only took us 20 minutes.
We ate the snake, and now we have the guns of the Patriots.
That's right. So the first one is a part of the Beauty and the Beast Corps. Our introduction to the Beauty and the Beast Corps, Laughing Octopus. And this fight takes place in a laboratory where Naomi's at. And the cool part about this fight in South America is the Laughing Octopus actually turns themselves into different objects in the room. And then you have to use your thermal scope goggles, your eye patch, excuse me, your special eye patch, solid eye, to determine where they are. And she becomes all sorts of friendly characters too. I like this boss fight. It was kind of stressful for me. I had a hard time with it.
It's kind of frustrating. Mostly fighting with the controls is kind of
when I realized that I could lay down and get a bunch of health back, and I could do that, and I could save rations that way, it made the fight longer, but I was able to beat her. So I actually think this boss fight is cool though, and I kind of want to put it at A tier. I enjoyed it. Okay. The more I thought about it, the more I was like, I like the idea behind this fight. It's really obvious that she's like clearly not Naomi when she's on the floor, like, help me. You're like, yeah, that's clearly the boss, but it's like, cool. Not the boss, but the boss.
These Beauty and the Beast Corps fights, there's 4 of them. They're kind of combinations of bosses from the rest of the series. So like Laughing Octopus is sort of a combination of obviously Decoy Octopus with the camouflage stuff, which is a boss fight in the first Metal Gear game that you fight without even knowing it. And you don't. It's like later, like at the end of the game, you're like, "Oh, I guess we did beat Decoy Octopus." And laughing must be with like the joy. I don't know. I don't know where we get laughing from. Is there some? Or maybe Fat Man laughs in Metal Gear Solid 2.
Probably from Fat Man. Yeah. I mean, what's funny is I completely forgot about Decoy Octopus.
Yeah, well, because you never actually meet Decoy Octopus.
Yeah, Decoy Octopus was the scientist, right? That we talked to.
Yeah, Kenneth Baker. The one you find in the jail cell.
Jail cell, not the scientist, the head of the place. Yeah,
Arms Tech, the head of Arms Tech.
Yeah. That's right. So that's really funny.
He just dies when you find him.
Completely forgot about Decoy Octopus. Yeah. So Laughing Octopus fight though itself, I think, is an A tier boss, and I like. Every single one of the Beauty and the Beast Corps, I like where you fight them. Like I like the setting of each fight.
Yeah, they're varied. Because this one's in South America, and then what are we on to next? Raging Raven.
Yeah, Raging Raven takes place in a building that you can actually walk up to the top, or you can fight them through the windows. You can fight them in this like every story of this building, and I would go to
Yeah,
the
it's like a
roof.
historic Eastern European building, right?
Yeah,
Or
and
feels very old timey.
it's really cool. It is frustrating though because the controls again make it a little rough for me personally. Like I had a hard time. Now I want to put it in C tier because I don't think it's bad. I think it's
Yeah, but it's
okay,
just not particularly good
but I
either.
don't. Yeah, I don't think it deserves B tier. I don't think
Yeah.
it deserves B tier because in my mind, the next one, which is Crying Wolf, which is a nod to Sniper Wolf, right,
And the sorrow.
and the Sorrow, a killer combo, if you ask me, because I
Yeah.
love both those fights. Well, the Sorrow's not a fight, but you know what I mean. I want to put up at A tier also because even though the fight is kind of bland, I hid under a truck and I would just wait for her to appear and then I'd shoot her in the head. That's all I did the
Yeah.
entire boss
Well,
fight.
and I think that's the part that brings in kind of the end from Metal Gear Solid
It
3.
does, yeah.
Because it is a lot of like waiting and having to be patient here.
That's the hard part about Hideo Kojima games is you're like, this is kind of a lame gameplay mechanic, but is he doing this on purpose to mess with me? Like that's what you start
Yeah,
asking
but it's
yourself.
like
You're like,
artistically, it means something, even if you're not like having fun in the moment, you know?
yeah. And I'm like, are you just covering and doing this because you like that's a good cover though. It's like, oh, I meant to do that. It's not a boring boss fight. It was intentional, you know?
Yeah, I guess. I mean, I can't imagine you would like go into it planning a boring boss. Like if you wanted to make a fun one, you could, I guess,
It
right?
feels
Like,
like you're playing a game as a kid, like you're like don't touch the lava or some sort of game on the playground, and someone makes something up and they're like, I meant that all along. And it's like,
yeah,
okay.
I have a force
Oh,
field.
yeah, exactly. It's like that. But I want to put Crying Wolf in A tier because
Yeah.
it takes place outside in the winter. It reminds you of Sniper Wolf. It reminds you of the end. It reminds you of the Sorrow, which are three banger bosses from the previous games.
Yep. I'm with you on that.
It's an
And
A.
the important thing about the Beauty and the Beast core bosses here is that they all have extremely tragic backstories.
They do. And you know who's not afraid to tell you about them?
Drebin.
That man loves telling you those stories. He
He
loves
sure
it's.
does.
I called it story time with Drebin. Every time we beat a boss, I was like, it's time for more story time with Drebin.
Yeah. And I kind of want to think that they meant to make cutscenes out of those to like tell those stories, and they just realized this game has already like 75% cutscenes, so we'll just have Drebin like say it, and then we won't have to make the cutscene because you just listen to him tell the story about how sad and messed up all these Beauty and the Beast core people are. Yeah, they had all of them had an extremely bad time in their life.
It's like whereas the other ones, you get done with the scene and you're like, okay, we're gonna watch a movie. It's like, okay, we get done with the Beauty and the Beast core fight. It's time to listen to Drebin's podcast. That's what it feels like. So I don't mind it. I got kind of excited for story time with Drebin, and I was kind of
Yeah.
sad it was over. So the next fight is Vamp, the final Vamp fight. And
Because he comes back because he can't die.
there's a couple things about this that upset me. And I'm sure I could have called the codex to find out. If you don't know, though, that you're supposed to hit him with the serum to make his healing go away.
You gotta
Like,
get him with the syringe.
You're the syringe. Then it's like a fight that just keeps going and going and going and going, which is a very video gamey thing, you know. And I didn't use the codex. I didn't call the codex as much as I should have. It's a
Yeah,
creative.
and at this point in the series, if you're frustrated with a boss fight and it's not like your go-to calling the codec to find out more,
That's my
I don't know what
fault.
to tell you.
That's my fault. Yeah. And I was bad at calling the codec and knowing what to do. So I don't want to dock Vamp too much for that. I do think it does a good job at wrapping up Vamp's story, though. And in that sense, I want to put it in the B tier.
Okay.
Like, it's not a special fight. You're just kind of shooting him and he's doing his like knife throws and his ballet walking,
Yeah.
you know. But
And you do get some sweet cutscene fights between him and Raiden.
you do get some really cool cutscene fights with him and Raiden. And then, yeah, there's a whole part where you're fighting the cow robots.
Yeah, the geckos that move.
The geckos that moo, those things. So
Metal Gear Gecko, is that what they're called?
yeah, I think so. So there's that too. I think Vamp is a good strong B tier,
Okay,
is how I would put it.
I'm with you.
Oh, well, actually, yeah, we're gonna do that right now. The Metal Gear Rays, right?
Yeah,
That was what the next part was, wasn't it? Metal Gear Rays you were fighting?
Metal Gear. When you're fighting Vamp, I
Yeah.
think you're fighting geckos because they're the small ones that move, right?
Yeah.
The Rays
Oh,
are
Metal Gear Rays when I become a kaiju fight.
Yeah, you
That's-
are Metal Gear Rex versus
Oh
Metal
my
Gear
gosh.
Ray.
I'm just gonna do this.
You
I
got it.
love
It's
this.
S tier, no question.
I love this. So if you don't know, okay, how did I forget this? Again, there's just so much packed into these games. When you beat Vamp, then you get into the old Metal Gear Rex to escape, and that's when Liquid Ocelot confronts you in Metal Gear Ray, and you have a robot Pacific Rim Titanfall fight while you're in this like giant depot at this weapons port or whatever. And it's just really cool, and it's out of nowhere. And
Is it Shadow Moses too? You just spent
oh yeah,
time going
Shadow Moses.
through
You're in
all of
Shadow
Shadow
Moses.
Moses.
Yeah, in the
Yeah.
secret base of Shadow Moses. And so it's like it's a great fight. It's hard as in you now have to learn a new control set for this one boss fight that you're never
Yeah.
going to use again. But I kind of like it when games do that. Like throw me off a little bit, you know? And so
And it's worth it because you get to finally pilot a Metal Gear.
you get to finally pilot a Metal Gear. And it's weird too because you got like the door open, you know, they get the hatch open. So it's like you're kind of it's like driving a car with no windshield and there's gunfire everywhere, but you're still fine because you're Snake. It's okay.
Yeah,
So
nanomachines, it's fine.
Nanomachines. So I think that's an S tier boss fight for me.
I agree.
Screaming Mantis. It's got the dolls.
Last Beauty and the Beast core fight from Metal Gear Solid 4.
It's got the dolls going for it. That's
a
cool mechanic.
I want to say this is before the microwave chamber.
Before the microwave chamber. This is right,
which might be my favorite moment in the whole series.
Yeah. This is before the microwave chamber, before Snake gets hot pocketed. And then this is a fight where you're in like this control room that's circular, like very arena based. And then Screaming Mantis, combination of Psycho Mantis, and then you want to say the fear or the pain, probably. It's probably
I think maybe one of the dolls is actually the Sorrow.
The Sorrow's one of them.
She's got a Psycho Mantis doll. She carries 2 dolls on marionettes.
One Psycho Mantis.
Yeah, one is Psycho Mantis, and I think one is the Sorrow.
And I shot the Psycho Mantis one when I was fighting because the Psycho Mantis one is what controls.
Sorrow.
It controls. Oh God, why am I forgetting her name? Meryl again.
Yeah.
So it's like Meryl gets control the second time, which is a throwback to the first game. Again, entirely fan service.
Yeah, this game is like 100% just throwbacks to the last 3 games, and we love every moment of it.
Screaming Mantis fight was okay. I'm trying to think if it was as good, if it had as good of a payoff as, you know what, it did have as good of a payoff as Vamp to me because you get to see Psycho Mantis in the end.
Yeah, and it's kind of fun that you could pick up the doll and like shoot it to take control of stuff.
Yeah,
too.
and I think one thing we're looking at, just looking at this list while we're making it. I know we have a lot in the B tier, but that I think would tell you the quality of these games because if you're having
it's all relative, right?
And they're all relative, and also they're all good still. Like even though Revolver, Ocelot, Olga, The Fear, Volgan are in D tier, they're still fine boss fights.
They're only D tier because we're comparing them to the rest of the boss fights. It doesn't mean they're bad.
Exactly. So I would say that Screaming Mantis is going to be in B tier. Liquid Ocelot. The music changes. You're slowly realizing you're not fighting Liquid anymore. You're fighting Ocelot, and it goes back and forth.
It's just 2 old guys just beating each other up on top of it. There's nothing to fight for. Everything's been shut down. The Patriots are gone. The game is like the storyline that we try to do in the game is over, but there's still one more score to settle.
Just 2 old guys beating each other up. It's S tier. It's S tier.
They keep injecting themselves with the nanomachines to keep going, and then there's the moment at the end where they both go to inject themselves to keep fighting, and they inject each other because, man, there's some mutual respect there.
Yeah, it's so ridiculous. I loved it. It was great.
It's so dramatic. It's so like just over the top, but I love it.
Over the top dramatic is how it is. Yeah, it's perfect in that sense. So it's a good ending to the game. And then you get to watch an hour and a half of cutscenes.
Mm-hmm. And that's not even an exaggeration. It's actually an hour and a half.
It's actually an hour and a half. Yeah. So the Liquid Ocelot battle is a great way to end the main story. Mm-hmm. I would say. I don't know. Do you think we should even do a tier list of the other games? I don't probably not.
That's a good question. Honestly, off the top of my head, I've played those games the least, but off the top of my head, I can't remember a single boss fight. So
okay, yeah. So we're probably not going to do a tier list. This is a tier list of the main Metal Gear games.
Yeah, the Metal Gear
are solid games.
Yeah. There are probably some good boss fights in 5 and MP. I mean, I'm sure there are some good ones. Those are the games I spent the least amount of time with.
Yeah. So I'm playing Peace Walker next, probably tonight. Probably gonna start it up tonight. Ooh, but Indiana Jones also comes out today, so it's kind of
Yeah.
wild. So
I hear it's good too.
I hear it's good as well. So I think this is a good. We've done a good job. I think this is what I don't know if people will agree with us, but I think we've
Send us your
done
own tier lists.
exactly. Send us your tier list if you, or send us why you disagree if you don't agree with us. Let us know what you think because I'm really curious to see what you know, what you believe should be an S tier. Are you a Volgan stan? Did we make you really mad? Tell us why. Do you know how he got his shock powers? Help us out because I
Yeah.
still have no
Wonder if
idea.
I Google this. How did Volgan get his powers? I'm gonna Google it right now. How did Volgan get his powers? Volgan's
See, magic, just generic magic.
was it ever explained how Volgan got his electric powers? No.
No,
No. All it's just a 12-year-old thread on GameSpot, and they're just like, no, there's no, they never say.
there's no reason why. That is so funny. Okay. Oh man. Well, that's fantastic. Well, do you want to let's just do a little quick what you've been playing this week then. And we'll
Yeah,
call it.
well,
How does that sound?
I've been back on my Call of Duty. So I finished Black Ops 2 on my handheld. I went up to Missoula, Montana for the Thanksgiving holiday, and it's quite a drive from my parents' house in Washington. So I played Black Ops 2 and finished it on my handheld. My Neo Air 1S plays
Nice.
wonderfully on that. Had a good time. There is after the credits, there is an Avenged Sevenfold music video with the
What?
characters from Black Ops 2, and it is
What?
very 2012.
Oh, that's a beautiful piece of history right there. That
Yeah,
feels good.
it was kind of weird, but I was in a car, but just sitting there in the back seat, so I watched the whole thing.
Oh,
So
that's
playing
good.
that, I also started Call of Duty Ghosts, so I'm like a quarter of the way through that game,
Which is a
probably.
game that I would also watch you play because I feel like I'm one of the 3 people in the world that enjoyed the story of Ghosts.
Yeah,
Everyone else hated it, and I was like fine with it. I don't
I
know
like
why.
it so far, just because of how like sort of post-apocalyptic and scrappy it is, where you're just like sort of you're like a small group of people sort of trying to pick up the pieces of like what was, rather than being like part of a gigantic army or World War II or something. Those are all so fun too. I just think Ghost it's nice that it's different. The story that they're trying to
Yeah.
do, it's not overly like it's very character focused. That's what I've noticed as I go through all of these games as they become more and more character focused. Like Black Ops 2's storyline is really personal for the main bad guy has like a real personal beef that he's trying to get over. And Ghosts kind of starts to feel that way as well. And I like that. I think they started doing that in Modern Warfare, the first one, but it just gets more and more as you go through them. So there's that. And what else? I'm still waiting for I bought a Retroid Pocket 5 that has not shipped yet. So I'm waiting for that to play some retro games because I want to play Thousand Year Door. And
Well,
I
you
have
also
not.
played the original Metal Gear.
Oh, that's true. While you were playing Metal Gear Solid 3 and 4, I played through the original Metal Gear, just following along with a YouTube video because that game is not, it's not impossible to do, but it is definitely meant to be the only game that you have in 1987. And you are supposed to just like spend 50 hours figuring it out. And I didn't want to do that. So I didn't.
I get that.
So I just followed a guide, which is maybe not the best experience for that to really get what they were trying to do. But I just wanted to say I finished it. So I did.
Hey, it's good. You got it. You finished it. Put it on the Trello board.
I sure did. Yeah. What have you been playing, Mike?
So speaking of Trello boards, finished everything in Control on the main story of the campaign and the DLC. So I did the main story. I did all the DLC's main story. I didn't really do a lot of side quests because I was kind of like, I'm wrapping up. I'm getting done with the game. But I really liked it and I really enjoyed it. So now I would be on Alan Wake 2 is the next
All
one I'd be
right.
on. If I maybe Quantum Break, but I've kind of heard from multiple people that Quantum Break's just kind of okay.
Yeah. Is it
And
in the
I'd
same
rather
universe?
it is. They're all in the same universe. But I'm kind of like I heard there's more of a Control Alan Wake connection, which there really was. Like there's a whole one of the DLCs in Control is entirely about Alan Wake 1. So,
Oh,
and when I was playing it, I was like, this is awesome. So I might just jump into Alan Wake 2, but I'm kind of going to be a patient gamer and wait for that game to go on sale. So that's
yeah.
kind of
I
my
think
thought
that's a good move.
process. But yeah, it was really fun. So I really dug it. So next week, I don't know what we're doing next week. Maybe we'll do a mailbag. We haven't done one in a while.
Oh, that's true. We got some mail to get through. That's for sure.
Yeah, so we'll do a mailbag next week. If you got any questions for us, you can go ahead and send it to codexhistorypodcast@gmail.com. You can go to codexpodcast.net, join our Discord, ask us questions there as well. And that's where you can see like all of our Trello boards and stuff. And with that, Tyler, I think that's going to be it. Do you want to say bye to everybody?
Goodbye, everybody.